Thank you, Bongiwe. I am joined by the FF Plus leader, Peter Groenewald. He sits at the police committee and he's so vocal about crime matters. And the president, when he was speaking, talked about strengthening police, the courts and the NPA, as well as increasing police visibility. He also spoke about addressing GBV issues. Mr. Groenewald, do you think that what the president has said about increasing police visibility and strengthening the NPA and the courts is enough to tackle crime?
Well, firstly, let me put it very clearly, and that is exactly what the Freedom Front Plus has predicted, that we're going to hear new and old promises from the president, and it appears that the last 6 State of the Nation addresses were cut and paste, and this has been his new address. So what he said today is nothing new. If you come to the police, you know, he said last year that they're going to recruit 12,000 new members. Now he says 10,000. I can assure you that it was not 12,000 that had been recruited last year. It's a big problem. The question is whether we have the money. The president wants to create the impression that the government has crime under control. It's a lie. It is not true. If you go and look at the crime statistics from the police, it is annually increasing. You cannot compare what happened in the lockdown period as far as crime is concerned. But if you take 2019 and you take the latest statistics, violent crimes specifically are at a huge increase in the crime rate. Also, as far as women and children is concerned, every year the president talks about the curbing of violent crime and violence against women and children. We made proposals to see and ensure that there is a difference, but they don't listen, and there is no change in the situation of crime except that it is in the increase.
Thank you very much, Dr. Groenewald. Let me hand you to Samkelo.
Indeed, the issue of the electricity within the country, a new minister in the presidency responsible for electricity. I wonder if the opposition will be occupying that seat. Mr. Holomisa, just your view as the UDM on this new Ministry of Electricity, essentially clipping the wings of the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin, but also taking away from Minister Kweda Mantashe in the electricity provision within the country. The Minister of Public Enterprises now basically left with a corporate entity alone.
Well, the situation in this country is that we always listen to these lofty ideals and plans, but we don't normally see implementation. President Ramaphosa this evening elaborated a lot of things he promises to do, but we have gone through this route before. And I don't think even if he appoints a minister of electricity, this will change, as long as we have not yet diagnosed what is the reason for the load shedding. So we wish him good luck on that. But do we need another cabinet minister over and above we have the ones we have? I don't think so.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bantu Holomisa. We are keeping with a rolling coverage with this issue of President Cyril Ramaphosa's new cabinet. The issue of electricity topping the agenda of the State of the Nation address. Essentially, 70% of the State of the Nation address was around the electricity crisis within the country. We are now put into a state of a disaster when it comes to electricity provision. Lulama.
Thank you, Samkelo. I am joined by the NFP parliamentary leader, Sheikh Imam. Mr. Imam, the president spoke about Eskom. Do you think that what he has said is enough to address the challenges that Eskom is facing?
As the National Freedom Party, we are not convinced. First of all, we've said before and time again that Eskom has a whole host of problems. President is putting more emphasis on money, and that's basically what he is saying. He's talking about bringing in engineers from the Engineering Council. And remember, we have a serious problem in the country as far as the skills, the engineers and things that we are producing today are not fit for purpose. And that's the problem that we seem to have. And if you heard the statement that we made earlier on by government, that they want to bring back those engineers that in 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they gave packages to even at the age of 70 years. So they want to bring these people back. Now, again, you want to take engineers that are inexperienced. That's the first problem. Second problem, you've got sabotage. Third problem is you have not been maintaining them. If you remember, the President spoke about a renewable energy program last year. It did not yield positive results. So we certainly believe that the government does not have a comprehensive plan in place to deal with the energy crisis. We've said before, you need a minimum of 1.5 trillion rand, and it's going to take you up to 10 years if you start today. What we've heard today, we are not convinced that even in 10 years we're going to solve these problems. We're already now drawing energy from the neighboring countries. We also sell to the other countries as well. So I think we have a serious problem.
You're saying that the president, his solutions involve money. You sit at the Appropriations Committee. Do you think that the National Fiscus has that amount of money that is needed for this plan that the president has outlined to deal with Eskom crisis?
Government certainly does not have the funding, but if we see what the president is saying, it simply means he's going to go to the market and he's going to go and borrow again and again. There's 151 billion rand that we are now borrowing. Okay, only 3% of that is in the form of funding or grants. The rest of it you're going to have to pay back. We're already sitting with a 4.5 trillion rand debt in this country. And when I talk about 4.5 trillion, I'm not talking about local government and all other departments that are borrowing. So we have a crisis as far as the debt is concerned in the country. Now you're going to go and borrow more and more. The president put emphasis on infrastructure. And we know time and time again they were not able to implement these projects of theirs. Now, if you even heard what he said, that about 4 billion rand of that have already been completed. 4 billion rand out of 200 billion rand is a major difference. So I think, you know, the government is out of touch with reality, unfortunately.
And we've heard the finance minister many times in Okotongwana saying that the time for bailouts is out, but we've heard the president saying that as the National Treasury is going to take off the Eskom debt?
Oh, absolutely. Now, let's look at this. First of all, consumers pay for the energy or electricity that they buy. Secondly, government, through the taxpayers, bail them out. Thirdly, they get the increases through NERSA for their infrastructure and their weaknesses. It's the consumers losing in every angle that you look at it, and we think it is unacceptable. And we cannot be using taxpayers' money to bail them out. If they want to run it as a business, we say you go into the private sector, you go and borrow the money, and you pay back that interest, but don't allow the taxpayers to pay for it.
Thank you very much. Let me hand over to you, Sakina and Bongiwe at the studio.
They're in conversation with Sheikh Imam from the NFP. I do understand Samgele Masego is standing by. Samgele, I think you have the leader of the Democratic Alliance.
Parliamentary puzzle. The minister in the presidency, Mondli Kungubele, will be engaging with him, but also let us take the leader of the DA, Mr. John Steenhuisen. Mr. John Steenhuisen, just your response on the issue of the state of the nation address of the president.
Well, I think the big concern for us is the national state of disaster. We believe that it is ill-considered, and we saw the looting and maladministration that went on in the last state of disaster, as long as the stupid regulations that were being passed left, right and centre that actually end up harming the economy and killing jobs even more. We don't believe it's necessary to have a national state of disaster to deal with an electricity problem. We've now also appointed a third minister now to get in the way of getting through this energy crisis. So now we're going to have a third minister with electricity, Mr. Godon and Mr. Mantashe. Three people getting in the way. We should get the politicians out of the way. I see the speech as nothing more than adding a few more wasted years to the 9 wasted years of Mr. Ramaphosa's previous incumbent, Mr. Zuma.
When you look at the electricity provision, basically the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, is no longer going to be in charge of coal-powered stations. That moves to the new minister in the presidency responsible for electricity. Does this have the capacity to increase and resolve the country's electricity problems going forward, and the issue of the just transition remaining with the Minister of Public Enterprises?
I think you're mixing all of the responsibilities across 3 different individuals. I think it's a terrible idea, and as I said, you've got 3 ministers now in the way. Again, the politicians, Mantashe and others, have been the biggest obstacle to us being able to get into energy security in this country. Now you've added yet another layer on it. It's the wrong decision. They should have got the politicians out of the way.
Thank you very much, Mr. John Steenhuisen, the leader of the Democratic Alliance, speaking against the issue of the new minister in the presidency responsible for electricity. Mr. Willem Matisha, just your response as the Congress of the People on the State of the Nation address, particularly the state of disaster and the electricity trajectory of the country, the new minister of electricity.
I must say that the speech itself was extremely disappointing, because that which was given was the repetition of what has been given to us for over 15 years. The president will come, make a presentation and not achieve anything at all. We had thought that you would come here and say, I spoke to you last year, I spoke to the people of South Africa, this is what I have achieved. But then nothing like that has actually come forward. There are very serious problems in the country. Unemployment, he has not achieved anything. Poverty and all these things, he has not achieved anything. Therefore, we have gone back. Now, the multiplicity of the departments is yet another thing. For him to say a new department of electricity, that won't take us anywhere. Therefore, we say that he has not given us anything, we have not achieved anything, and therefore, next week we'll be able to take the matters up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Willem Matisha, who is from the Congress of the People. Over to you, Lulama, as you speak to the leader of the Inkatha Freedom Party.
Thank you very much, Samgele. The president, when you are speaking, spoke about improving rural areas. Now, the province of KwaZulu-Natal has vast majority of rural areas, and the province recently has been hit hard by floods. The president spoke about that they will increase the construction of bridges. What do you make of that, Mr. Velenkosini Hlabisa?
First of all, in summary, the whole address, I can put it as a long-winded narrative around ESCOM, load shedding, and the creation of new promises with no precise action plan, no policies. But what became clear, the president passed a vote of no confidence to ministers Gwede Mantashe and Pravin Gordhan. We really do not need a minister of electricity. We might end up with a minister of potholes, minister of pit toilets. All we need a minister that will deal with minerals and energy and resolve the crisis around electricity. The IPF all along have been calling for the consolidation and rationalization of departments. With regard to what the president said regarding the devastation that was caused by floods in KwaZulu-Natal, all we want to see is speed in dealing with people who are still living in the holes, the roads that has not been fixed up to now, the money that was promised that has never come to the province of KwaZulu-Natal.
Thank you very much. With that, let's end it, and over to you, Samgelo.
Lulama, the ACTP is also in the National Assembly. They were part of listening to the State of the Nation address. The president of the SADP, your views of the State of the Nation address, issues pertaining to crime, criminality in the country, issues of electricity, the state of disaster.
Well, I think that the president has very clearly made promises and not kept them, as he's done in the past. For the last 6 to 7 years of the State of the Nation address, we've seen promises that are unfulfilled. The president has made a promise to reduce unemployment. Unemployment sits at 33%, 70% for youth unemployment. He's made a promise to reduce crime. We have some of the highest levels of crime, where our murder rate is equivalent to, if not surpassing, that of the war in Ukraine and those of Ukrainians. He's made a promise that there would be no mandatory vaccines, and mandatory vaccines were introduced in South Africa. So the president has made a promise that there would be no load shedding. We've seen load shedding at its worst level ever. The greatest threat to South Africa and to South Africans is ESCOM and the ruling party.
Thank you very much to the president of the SACTP. Over to you, Deputy President, rather, I'm promoting you now. Over to you, Lulama.
Thank you very much, Samkele. I am joined by PAC leader Mzwanele Nyonso. When the president was making his speech, he did refer to the devastation that has happened of the earthquake that has happened in Turkey as well as Syria. What do you make of that, Mr. Nyonso?
No, we note that he said there's a crisis in Turkey, but because he wanted to please his masters in the Western countries, he did not mention Syria, because he can't mention Syria because Syria is under sanctions, unfair sanctions by Western powers. Secondly, we reject this thing of appointing a minister of electricity. What does that mean? Does that mean because there are problems with PRASA, we may have the minister of trains? Does that mean very soon we will have the minister of corruption? Truth is, the disaster is this government. All of them and everything is a disaster here. And the ANC cannot rule. And truth is, they can't lead us anymore. They must just all of them, they must step down.
That would be the solution, that is the PAC for them to leave the government?
Definitely, this country needs perhaps a government of national unity until we go to elections, because as things stand, they have failed to rule this country, and that is the fact.
With that, let's leave it there.